Greetings. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the basics of Excel, and this will include navigating around Excel, as well as formulas and functions that we can use. And of course, this is specific to a class that I'm teaching, so it may not be applicable to everybody, and I may not be covering things that you were expecting. And of course, if that's the case during this process, please leave me a comment so I can try to follow up with it. Alright, so basically what we're looking at in Excel is a spreadsheet program. The main thing to understand about spreadsheet programs is that it's all organized into cells. And cells, each one of these squares, essentially has a coordinate. That coordinate is specified by the row, which is the horizontal line, and a column, which is the vertical line. Right? So if I click, for example, on A, here, it highlights all of the vertical cells, or I'm sorry, all the cells vertically. If I click on, let's say, 7, it highlights all of the horizontal rows. Now, while I was I'm in class and I was demonstrating some of the things in Excel that I do, there were some questions about how to navigate within the cell array a little bit faster. There's a couple things you can do. First, of course, is you can point and click. Right? So we've got this large white plus sign. That means that we are simply going to select a cell. We can also, of course, use the directional arrows up, down, left, and right. Some other things is if we have information, and I'm gonna type a little information in here real quick. Just a bunch of ones. Okay. My keyboard's too clicky. I'm sorry about that. Now, one of the things that you can do is, let's say I needed to get, this was, let's say, a very large amount of data, right? Not just 22, but maybe 2,200. What if I needed to get to the bottom quickly? Well, one of the things you can do is press and hold down Control, right, at the beginning of any array, and then press the down arrow, and it will automatically send you to the bottom. You can also combine this with Shift, so Control Shift, and then press down. It will automatically highlight all the way to the bottom of your data. Some other things that you can do with that, of course, is rather than using arrows, you can use the page up and page down feature, which will jump rather than all the way to the bottom. It will just cross a large amount of data. So let me just Control C, copy that, and I'm already at the bottom. I'm just going to paste, and I can show you how I can skip through here and navigate to a lot of data rather quickly. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so now I've got all this data. Let's say I need to get to, let's go up a little bit here. Let's maybe go down to midway right here. That's 2. Okay. So rather than go all the way to the bottom, let's say I wanted to highlight just some of it. If you hit Control and Shift, hold it down. I'm sorry, Shift and hold it down, and then page up. You can see that it will highlight large chunks. Okay. What I said there previously was wrong. Control and Shift and page up or down doesn't really do anything. So this is just a Shift key. So Shift is a good way that we can actually highlight data. Okay. And go and delete all this. Okay. Okay, so a few things with Excel that I'd like to point out. One is formula drag. Okay, so formula drag is a very good tool for moving quickly through complex formulas, and I'll talk about formulas here in a second. But we can actually use it to make Excel do more of the work for us than we would normally need to do. So for example, if I needed to make a numbered list, right, and then 3 and so on and so forth, I could sit there and continually type, 5, 6, so on and so forth, or I could have Excel do the work for me. To make that happen, you select two cells. What Excel's going to do now, once I start the formula dragging operation, it's going to look at the difference between those two cells and automatically assume what the next cell would be in that order. So right now it's seeing that I've got a 5 and a 6. Now on the bottom right, you notice this little green box. When I go over that, the big white plus sign turns into a smaller black plus sign. You know that you've got it when we've got this little black plus sign here. I'm going to left click on that and drag, and you'll notice on the right this little box is showing me what the number is going to be. Right? So Excel is saying, hey, okay, the one previous to this was 1 less, so that means we're going to be adding 1 to each one of these. You can just keep scrolling on down. More down you drag your cursor, the faster it goes. Right? There we go. So we can automatically come up with a large list of numbers. Now, this is powerful not just for a large list of numbers. You can do this with a variety of other things. You can do it with dates. For example, Oops. Select these two. Notice it's automatically filling in the days, right, in the calendar year. So it automatically knows what we're talking about there. And a variety of other things. Okay, and we're back. So here I've got data from a questionnaire, the combined questionnaire from a class that I teach. And you can see we've got not a whole bunch of cases, but quite a few pieces of data. The only thing I'm interested in doing here is just showing you some of the things we can do with Excel in terms of your data. And I also want to use this to demonstrate formulas. All right, so the first thing I want to point out is what we can do with Excel is, of course, we can sort the data. To do that, we have a function right here called sort and filter. Right? Let's say I wanted to sort all of these rows by the subject identification number. Right now we can see that it's not in order here. To do that, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to highlight all the rows, and I'm using the shift control trick that I spoke about not too long ago in this same video, and just to make sure I select all the data. Okay, so let's go to sort and filter, and if we go to custom sort, you'll notice we have a couple things come up. Now let's see, I only want one level of sorting for this. I want it sorted by subject identification, so subid is what I call that. One of the things that you're going to want to notice here is that you can tell Excel assume all the cells on top of this data are headers, and you do that by checking this box right here. So notice here it says sort by this column. Okay, I hit OK, and notice it now ordered everything. So I now have all my subjects in order. Subject identification numbers in order. Participants in order. Okay. Now, with Excel, it has a set of very powerful features in terms of formulas. There are a bunch of them. If you want to see how many there are, you can just go up to this FX right here, which means insert function. Okay. And we click on that, you'll notice we've got this box that comes up. And if we were to look at all different formulas, you can see this is how many Excel has. It is a very large number. Okay. One of the things I didn't mention previously is the purpose of this box here. This is kind of the syntax box, you could think of it. Notice when I type something in here, it puts it into the cell. It's reflected down here. And also, when I click on a cell, it also appears up here. Now, where this box differs is in terms of formulas. We tell Excel that a formula is about to happen by using the equal sign. Oops, that's the plus sign. The equal sign. When we use the equal sign, Excel is then going to transform what it displays in this cell value, or cell for values right here, as compared to what's actually in the cell. All right. To start with, let's say I wanted to add a bunch of numbers together. In this case, it's not going to be meaningful, but I just want to add all these numbers together in age. Okay. To do that, there's a couple ways that we could do things. One is we could select all of them and go to this FX button, click on that. You can go into the search for a function field, which is actually pretty good at helping you with this, and then I want to add numbers. Hit go, and it will search for ones that have the formulas that it's going to think that you need. Okay, if I put add numbers. In this case, it's sum. I just want to add all these numbers together. That's sum. I hit OK, and it will open up this function arguments box. Now, what I'm going to be asking it to do here, see, notice it will give you kind of instructions. What's the first number? The first number is A2, or B2, sorry. Second number, B3. Third number, B4, and so on and so forth. Notice in the preview, it will verify the number that you're looking for, or the cell value that you're looking for, right, as well as the total. Now, one of the things I don't think I mentioned is the coordinate for each one of these cells. I did bring up the coordinates, but notice its columns are organized in letters, and rows are organized in numbers. You can always tell where you are by looking up here, and it will display where your current I just wanted to get out of that, sorry, where your current location is. So notice wherever I click up here, it's giving me the coordinate for it. Okay, those coordinates are important because it tells Excel what the location of a value would be. Okay, so I showed you the way to sum on the FX, and it's a little bit slower. One of the other things that you can do is rather than enter each cell by cell, you can instead, notice I'm just typing it in now. When I type it in, it starts coming up with a list of formula that I might use. In this case, I want to use sum, so I'm going to go ahead and press tab. That will automatically enter that. Now, instead of entering number by number, okay, what we're going to do is, oh, looks like I may have messed up some data. There we go. I messed up some data right here for subject 0. Let me just get back to where we were. Okay. And I entered the parentheses here, and that's why it gave me an error when I pressed tab, because I've already given it everything it would give anyway. Rather than entering them cell by cell, I can just select all the cells, right? And that's what this colon is about. That means from B2 to B11. If you make it a comma, it will say B2 and B11. So notice how the highlight changes here. In this case, I want Excel to add from B2 to B11. So we do that in parentheses. I enter that all in parentheses, right? Notice that it's color copied, which makes it all the more easier to tell where you're looking. I hit enter, and it will add all of them together. It just so happens that all the participants groups, all the participants in this group's age added together is 300. 300 years. Okay. Now there's a variety of other formula that you can use. They come in handy. Another one that can come in handy is, let's say you need to get an n number. In this case, one of the ways, of course, is you can look over here, and we've got, it goes to the 11th row, but it starts at row 2. So, you know, we subtract those, and that tells us we've got the number of subjects, right? Another way that we can do this actually is by using formulas. Count, for example. All right, I'm gonna do this as though we have no idea what the formula would look like. I click on the insert formula, and let's say I want to count stuff. Count the number of. We'll just leave it at that and see what it comes up with. All right, so we've got a whole bunch of different things that are designed to count or have something to do with counting. We've got the counts or number of cells in range that contain numbers. We've got a non-blank cell count feature, a conditional count, here, right, and so on and so forth. We can also do frequencies, right? In this case, I want it simple. It's just a count. That's all I want to do. I want to count the numbers. So now notice on here, it's going to ask you to go after each individual value using the commas, I should say, in the formula function. But rather than do that, you can just drag as well. By the way, if you click on this little box, it just minimizes things so it's easier to see. So I want to see how many we have here, right? So I just select them and drag across. Okay, 10, right? That's what it's doing. In actuality, it's counting each one of these. Hit OK. And I know that I've got an n equals 10. Right? Okay, so let's say we had to transform some of this data. Right? Let's say, let me find something here. Oh, just to demonstrate it, let's say I wanted to find I needed to, for whatever reason, multiply or add, let's say I needed to add these two numbers together. Okay. So there are a couple ways I could do that. I, of course, could go into the formula function, go find sum. I could press equals sum and do this manually between these two. You know, this one, comma, this one, maybe. Right? And I could get it that way. That's one way. Another way I could do it would be, let's do another equals sum. I could just drag these two together. Right? So I've got the colon there in the center. And it's going to be the equivalent. Notice I get this box when I do it that way, because it's basically warning me that there are numbers next to it. Maybe they're supposed to be a part of it. Don't worry about that. Another way, and the problem with those two ways, is I have to keep going down through each one of these rows, right? Each one of them, typing in the thing, you know, the formula, and that gets time intensive. Instead of doing that, I can formula drag. Right? So now what I'm going to do is remember that Excel is going to look at each cell coordinate relative to what I'm asking it to do. And that will make more sense when I actually do the dragging. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Excel, okay, I want you to apply this sum algorithm to each one of these cells to this point. Okay? So our first one here was AU2 to AV2, just these two. Now if you go through each one of these and pay attention to this area up here, you'll notice that it automatically figured, oh, okay, he's going after the next row. So he's applying the columns. He wants to sum these two numbers together for this many rows. Okay? So this can save a lot of time as well, no matter what it is. Now, if I wanted to, let's say, maybe I wanted to figure out the average. So how do we figure out an average? Well, remember, in statistical form, we call the average the mean. In Excel, it is referred to as the average. So even if I type in mean, right, and look through here, you'll notice that you'll eventually have to come down to average. Right, there isn't mean for us to use. So it's just a good thing to know. I'm gonna enter the formulas in different ways just so you can kind of see. They give you, as soon as I tell you they don't have mean, I type in mean, of course. So you can see more of the diversity by which you can get to the formulas. So I've got average here. Let's say I want to average all of question 21 responses together for some reason. Okay. So notice I just started by typing the formula. I then clicked and dragged to highlight all the cells I want involved. Okay, I'm going to end that with a parenthesis, hit enter, and now I'm going to formula drag. Okay, so rather quickly I'm able to get to the mean of all those numbers without having to type each individual one in, or actually complete it as a formula. Okay, I'm like a handwritten formula where I'm saying add this one to 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 this one, and then divide all of it by, how many is that? 6. Nope, 7. Right. This takes care of it for us. And working smarter, not harder, is a very good thing when it comes to stats. Okay. Now, one of the things that you can also notice here in number is you may need to adjust decimal places. These two little boxes here will let you do that. So you can increase them, you can decrease them, right? And it has its own rounding rule. You'll notice that the numbers change based on the rounding rule. Okay, so there's another thing that we can use. For Excel, in terms of stats, those are the two most important things to be aware of, is just basic navigation as well as some of the tricks in terms of moving around, highlighting, formula drag, all important things. Now, the best way to actually get to do this is to get your own data or invent some data and just start playing around with it. See what kind of formulas exist. There's one in particular when it comes to making strings and complex formulas that I like to use called concatenate, for example. And what concatenate does is it lets us join text strings together. Text strings are anything that is non-numerical. So in this case, it would be, for example, the category numbers here. Or, I'm sorry, the category information here. Right? Subject, age, gender, race. Those are all strings. You can actually use concatenate to take string data and smash it all together, as here. And that can come in very handy when you've got, let's say, a very large list of categories that you need to name. So rather than having to sit here and, for example, it seems like a lot of work, but when you get used to it, it's actually pretty fast. If I wanted to create these categories here without having to type each one in individually, let's say instead of having just 5 there, I had maybe 500 of them. That would take a very long time. I can use concatenate to do that work for me. Right? So this is quiz 19 and start there. Okay, I forgot the decimal. Okay, and 1. Okay, so I know I need this to go to 5, so I'm going to do the formula drag trick here. 5. Okay, these do not change. These areas right here, the quests, the 19, and the decimal do not change. So I'm just going to copy those. I'm going to highlight the area I wanted to fill with those, and I'm going to paste them in. I'm using a lot of keyboard to do this. It actually makes it much faster. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to concatenate all this together. And I do that. This one you can't really drag. You have to use the commas to make work. So you notice I'm just putting commas in for each one. Let's end that. And now if I formula drag down, voila, right? There it is. So if I had a whole bunch of these to make, this would make it a very fast process. Now you may be asking, hey, that's in columns. These are in rows. Is there anything I can do about that? Well, there is. There's something called transpose. So if I were to select all this data and Control-C to copy it, and let's say I wanted to transpose it just right here, what I would do is on the far left up here under Paste, oops, that's not what I want you to do. There we go. Just trying to use my Control button here to show you where my cursor is, or my mouse pointer. There we go. There's 2 options for paste. On top, that's just a general paste. On the bottom, you can get a lot more options. Now, to make this work in terms of transposition, you're going to want to paste special. First, I want to make sure I've got my cell selected where I want it to go. then I go to Paste Special. I get a whole bunch of options here. What I want here, now notice, I'm going to do this. I'll just demonstrate it this way so we can see it, I guess. I'm going to leave everything the way it is, but I'm going to hit transpose. Okay. Now notice when I transposed it, all of a sudden it gave me garbage, essentially. What I wanted was this to go from a column to a row, but I didn't want to change this. Now why did this happen? Well, the reason why is, notice here, the value that we're given is different from the formula above. When you paste in a general way, it's going to take the formula and paste it relative to the cell you put it in. We don't want to do that. We just want the values of here to appear in this fashion. So to do that, we have to change one thing about what we're going to paste, or how we're going to paste, I should say. So I'm going to copy that, select the row I want to go to Paste Special. Instead of all, I just want values, and I want it transposed. Voila, there it is. Now notice when I click on this, it is not a formula, it is just the value. Okay, so those are a couple ways that you can make things faster and easier. These navigation tricks and formula drag work really, really well for creating tables, creating charts, organizing your data, and when you get really complex data sets, using formulas to your advantage really makes things move much faster and smoother. It means less steps, which means less potential error on the human operator end, and a lot more valid data and analysis.